Welcome back, everyone. I'm Zell, and oh boy, here we go again. This time, Civivi knives. What do you need to take apart a Civivi knife? Same stuff you needed with the Wii knife. You need a T6 and two TH. On both knives, the T6 is generally not needed unless the pocket clip is T6 or there's some other internal screws that are T6. But good just to have one in case you need it. Wow, that got me. So, first off, we got to a disclaimer this. This is in no way sponsored for, asked for, or at the behest of Wii Knife Company or any other knife company. I do not make videos at anyone's direction but myself. And I do not represent any of these knife companies. The only company I represent is Zelrick 42. That's it. Well, Todd Knife and Tool, but that's part of the umbrella. These videos are done for you by me, not for any of these companies. And I'm doing these on Wii and Civivi because you guys, many of you have so many problems with the Wii and Civivi knives. And I understand why, but you really shouldn't. They're really easy to get together and take apart. And we're going to use one of the, I forget what the, nausea, I believe, with Chinese Damascus in it. We're going to use one of these for today. T8 for the majority of the knife. T6 we'll get to later. So, first thing I'm going to do is open the knife and take the pivot screw out. I open the knife because there is a spring in that lock bar, and I don't want that spring popping the entire knife apart, and this one's going to do it too. That is weird. I have never had knives do this, but apparently it's going to happen now whenever I'm trying to do it on TV. Or not TV, but you guys know what I mean. Alright, so interesting. So that usually doesn't happen. Usually it comes apart with this pivot screw coming out, but okay, whatever. So I'm going to put my thumb over that screw, or my index finger actually, and I'm going to unscrew it from this side, or try to. Holy goodness, they got that one in there tight. And drop it down. And what do we got back here? Got one more back here, it looks like. And same thing there. I want to have my finger on the back side of the knife, opposite that screw where the other screw is, because there's a barrel in there that we don't want to mess with. So now this is going to come apart a little weird, but that's okay. It's kind of good that this happened. It'll shine some light on things that might happen to you. Backspacer out. Why is there oil in that? I don't know. There's a bearing. There's another bearing. Good to go. Stop pin. Get that guy. Set it aside because, and I mean seriously, set it aside somewhere safe because stop pins run away and never want to come home. And it's crazy. Oh boy. So that was it to taking it apart. We're going to pull that on out, and give me a minute here. I want to see if I can get this to come apart. Alright, so we may be getting some advanced instruction. So I'm going to have to rejigger the camera here, and we'll go through how to get past this problem. And it's actually something to help with another problem, so good thing that it happened. Alright, so I keep this little vise down here for just such occasions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a, what do they call these things? Lint-free cloth. If you have one of those, some sort of rubber or something like that, that's actually better for this. But all we're doing is trying to make sure that the jaws of the vise don't mess up the screw. And yeah, I know I'm not putting it in the center of the vise, all those things. The machinists out there can jump on me later. Let's see. Is it going to come loose, or am I going to have to go get some other type of material? It did come loose. Alright, so there you go. That's how you get it out. And that's how you get it out safely without messing up your pivot barrel. Same thing goes for these. These guys right here. Sometimes they will get stuck. And what I normally do for them is I just lay that down, lay something down in there. Tighten this up. And see, there you go. Just I can use the scale there to get it loose. But you want to get your T8 down in there and actually get it loose. But there you go. Extra bonus lessons. What a deal. And this is like a cheap vise. This is like $30 whenever I bought it. I don't know what it is now. Whenever I bought it, it was like $30 at Lowe's. So, not a big deal. So, we'll get ourselves rejiggered around here and we'll finish this up. These little screws, body screws, do be careful taking apart any of the Civivi or Wii knives. They will change body screw sizes from place to place in the knife. And sometimes you've got to have them in the right hole or the thing won't go back together. So, now, let's get this knife back together. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this pivot barrel back down onto our logoed pivot. And off camera here, I'm going to do a couple things that you probably shouldn't do. But there we go. Yeah, and basically I use a set of pliers. You really shouldn't do that, but since this knife is here, that's what we're going to do. And I didn't mar anything up, so it's all good. So, step on the back of this guy. Right there, there's a step. See that step? Right here, there's a step. A little harder to see in this black, but it's there. Whenever you put the knife together, line those two up, slide it in place. Doesn't always mean it's going to go flush, but that's the lowest it's going to go, and you shouldn't be able to twist it. If you're really worried, get a set of pliers. Don't grip this real hard, but run it back and forth. And really, don't do that. That's just if you're really paranoid. The other thing is the Civivi should be readable when the knife is open. So, like this. So I think we're in good shape now. Let's see if we can move along with putting this together. Next up are bearings. People ask a lot of questions about bearings, and they make it a lot harder than it needs to be. All bearings that we knife company and most knife companies use for that matter are the same thickness for each knife. So that means if you put it in with the cage open up or the cage closed up, it really doesn't matter. The knife is still going to function. They don't just roll one way. They're all these myths about bearings. All this is a washer with rolling surfaces on it. That's it. It doesn't get super complicated. However, we can do some things to save ourselves some maintenance. On these little cage bearings, you have the cage here, and it's open cage there is what I call it, where you can see more of the bearing, and the closed side of the cage there, where you can just see the balls and very little of the rest of them, just the very tips of them. So I put these in so that the open side of the cage goes into the recess. And that is simply so dirt, debris, and other things have a harder time getting in there. So in this knife, since the recess is in the knife blade, we would put that on there with the reset or with the open side of the bearing up. So that whenever we stick the knife blade on there, it will be down in the recess. So we'll put the knife blade on there. Oh, hit the camera, sorry guys. Grab the stop pin, it didn't run away, yay! And our backspacer. G10 backspacers in most of the Civivi knives lay on there quite nicely. And then our other bearing goes in here. And I'm using KPL, guys, but you can use whatever lube you need to. I used Ballistol for a long time because I refused to get in the frickin' fight about what lube is better. And then somebody sent me some nano oil, and I like the little pointer things on there, the little needles. So I started using nano oil, and then the folks over KPL sent me some KPL, and it's got the same little needle, and it's got a nice thick bottle that sits down nice and flat. So, you know, I started using their stuff. Is their stuff any more special? Maybe. I really don't know. Here's the thing. On the oil, none of it is so expensive that it's out of anyone's reach. So, buy the one that you like and be happy with it. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. I like the KPL because it sits on its butt and it's got the little pointer applicator, needle applicator. Next in line would probably be nano oil because of the needle applicator, but I don't like the tubes that the nano oil comes in. They feel cheap and they'll eventually be a problem. So, next up, let's get this knife back together. And since we didn't take these two screws out, the pocket clip stayed in place because we didn't take those two screws out. The pocket clip stayed in place, and that held the scale on, so we're in good shape there. Now, all we should have to do is set this down on here, get things lined up. There we go, everything lined up. Next up, I put the pivot screw back in. Now, at this point, you might want to use some blue thread locker, or red or purple thread locker, whichever one you prefer. I normally don't anymore because knives have gotten to the point where if you check, okay, that wasn't a screw hole, that's kind of funny. I run that right through the lanyard hole. Anyhow, check your backside, make sure you're, whoa, there we go. That if you get the screws and snug them down properly, you are in good shape. You don't need a whole bunch of thread lockers and stuff. Thread lockers on a knife are to accommodate vibration or make up for knives that are not perfectly square or worn. As a knife wears, you may have to go and use some thread locker. And most factories anymore put a little bit of industrial light thread locker on their knives from the factory. And seems to work pretty good. So we got everything snugged up, nothing spun on the backside. Why did you need the T6? Well, first off, let's make sure we're centered. We are centered. Dealing with the Wii and Civivi knives, I forget to do that. Everything works good. All right. What about the T6? Here's a trick for you with the T6. See if I can pull it off. Stick it in there. This should be the only place. Loosen it up till you feel that screw start to strip. Then lightly pull the driver out. Do the same thing here. As soon as that screw starts to skip, pull your driver off, and then don't. See how that came out with those two screws up? Oh, this one doesn't have tip up right hand, so I guess we're putting them back in the same hole. But if you can swap them on your knife, there you go. And that way you don't end up having to pull those screws in and out of that silly little frickin' pocket clip that's frickin' possible. So there you go, guys. That is how to disassemble and reassemble your Civivi knife. Most important pieces are orientation of the pivot, using that step on the backside to make sure it's in the right place, making sure it's legible whenever the knife is open, because that tells you that the little screw there is probably in the right place. These pivot barrels on the back, be wary of them, making sure that they're not spinning on the back side as you're doing things, because if they are, you just need to whip out your second T8 and stick it down in there. Those are the two monster things. Bearings, orientation, open side of the bearing goes into the recess. If you have a recess on both sides, doesn't matter, just stick the bearing in there. They can both go in the same way, opposite ways, don't matter, because they're the same thickness. So if you have no recess, or both sides have a recess, if there's a deeper recess, that's where I'll put the open side of the bearing. If not, it doesn't matter. Don't stress on it. People get way too stressed out about these things, and there's no reason to. Few little things you need to know, and you're golden. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.